Hello, everyone watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify. It's another episode of NRG Insights. For those who don't know, this is insights into the world of financial services. So whether that be lending, broking, or any kind of ancillary products that go with it, where we speak to influential people in the market and get their take on things. At the moment, we are going through a sales management series. I think it's actually going to be really useful for everyone just to discuss kind of how you get there and the pains and challenges of getting there. So today I've got Andy Alvarez joining me. Thanks for joining me, Andy.
Oh, brilliant to be here at last.
Yeah, it's been a while. We
Yeah, it's
keep
been a
talking
while.
about it, so we're finally here. I'm not going to say your job title, but you can tell everyone your job title and tell me about the it's too hard. Anything more than two words, I'm done. So talk to me about your financial services journey to where you are now.
Perfect. I'll help you, Marcus. So National Intermediary Distribution Manager at
Easy
Leeds
to
Building
say.
Society. I know it took me a while getting used to. So look, yeah, I suppose my journey into sort of where I am. I've been like in the industry sort of 26 years, and I started off. My very first role actually back in the day was at First National Mortgage Company, and I was on the customer service side of it. And don't get me wrong, I love mortgages now. I love the intermediary sector now. Um, but never really wanted to go into mortgages. I don't think anyone ever wakes up and thinking,
No one did.
like mortgages is the place I want to be. So no, I don't, and there's probably still some people now that don't. But for me, it was, that was my first role. And then like everything, you then kind of build on it. You understand what other roles are out there, opportunities come up, you go for those opportunities, you get them, and you kind of then cycle through like various different roles. And I worked for sort of a number of lenders, like over my time. I was at quite a big chunk of it. I was at Nationwide as well, but I was on the branch network side of it.
Hmm.
So I sort of came out of intermediary just back at the start of the credit crunch. I think like everybody, there was a lot of good people that kind of left the industry,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it became more around finding a job, and
Hmm.
so I got an opportunity with Nationwide, went there, didn't sort of look back, had, sort of 12 really, really good years there. Redundancy sort of hit back in 21. And since then, I've sort of had a couple of roles, but I believe everything happens for a reason. So that those sort of experiences positioned me well for being at Leeds now, which I, absolutely love.
And talk me through that kind of from your from talk me through the job roles that took you to leadership. What would you where did that move from sales to kind of the leadership position?
So when I started writing, customer services, went into sort of underwriting, senior underwriting, regional underwriting for a while. But I found actually the part of the underwriting I really loved was the relationship management side. Where I was there as an on-site when on-site started becoming, a thing. And actually that role was very much about how you manage relationships
Yeah.
rather than just how you sit down and underwrite a case. And then I moved from there to get the opportunity to go in as a business development manager. But that was very difficult to actually make that sort of transition
I was going to
because
say, how was that
y-
transition? Because obviously, I think that some of the best salespeople I know, or BDMs, etc., have come from a technical background because you can kind of, you really understand it in depth. But how was that transition from going into that into kind of pure sales?
it was well, for me, I loved it because I looked at because the thing is, sales isn't sales if
Mm.
you're not thinking about it as sales. If that that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
If you're kind of really focused on problems and solutions, then actually you're not selling. You're kind of providing the solution to somebody's problem.
yeah,
And underwriting gave me a really good grounding into that, but it was very hard to actually get the first BDM role. I'd applied for loads and loads, but because I didn't have BDM on my title,
yeah.
it was very difficult to even sort of get an interview, or even when you did, the feedback was like you did really well, but we've had a couple of
Got someone
people
free as
already
experience.
experienced. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, and you completely understand it, but you don't give up if it's the thing that you really want to do, and if it's worth having, you'll work hard at it, won't you? So So like, the transition in it, I loved, I love targets back in the day. I know sometimes people might think targets are a bit of a, sort of dirty word, but if they're executed properly and they're
Yeah.
done in the way that they're actually intended, they're a good thing. It helps you aspire and grow and push yourself,
I was
doesn't
going to
it?
say that it's really hard not to grow without targets because you're kind of drifting along. I think people say, like, I always hear that from businesses when they're proud of them. They're like, we're not KPI driven. I'm like, that's great, but I want to know I'm getting better, and that is KPIs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, I think we need that as humans anyway, that progression. And that doesn't matter whether you're in a workplace or, if you're in a gym or, whatever you're doing, you want to see the fruits of your labor. I think where
Mm.
things like targets got really muddy and got in a really murky world, it was the bonuses, etc., that were attached to targets
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because, that is what drives the behavior.
Hmm.
But I think
Yeah, I think
KPIs as a whole is good to have.
yeah, I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because you're right, targets become a bit of a dirty word in the bank once people getting big commissions and stuff. But you can still sell ethically and the correct way,
Yeah,
and like you say, problem solving and that kind of thing, and hit targets. It doesn't purely rely on if you're not hitting this, you're done. So do whatever you can. I think the world's changed a bit now as well when it comes to that kind of selling, right?
yeah. And look, the old thing I used to coin was sales through service.
Mm.
And that's sort of been banded around a lot. But it is, if you're doing the right thing by somebody, actually, it's even more rewarding than just hitting a number.
Oh
Because
yeah,
again, you've found a solution, you've done something that's potentially impacted somebody's life, for the positive. And I think in the intermediary sector, that drives a lot of the great brokers that are I'm fortunate to come across. They're not necessarily focused on they're not focused on prop fee.
yeah,
They're focused very much on how do I help these people in front of me and how do I help get them what they want. So I
yeah.
think it's cut through our industry.
I think you have, like, you're right. It's changed a lot, hasn't it? Where you know that the money is the end product, right, of doing the right thing. If you concentrate on just that singular thing,
Yeah,
then it's
yeah, exactly.
then it becomes a bit of an old school way of target old school bit. But it's yeah, I think most people have learnt now, right? The better you are at helping people, the more money you make. You can't concentrate on the money, concentrate on the service.
Absolutely.
So,
And
so
that gives you
talk to me.
longevity as well, though, in your role.
Yeah, I lost you then for a second.
Sorry, it was me and my dodgy Wi-Fi. No, all I was saying is it kind of gives you longevity because a lot of the like great brokers you
Hmm.
see now that have been in it for years, they don't advertise. It's word of mouth, and they have people coming back,
Yeah.
fix after fix after fix. So it's definitely prominent.
So let's go into that leadership side of thing then. So you've headed up national sales teams, that kind of thing. Um, what's interesting in this is the transition from being a pure salesperson into sales manager. What do you think? What do you think the reason are? Some people are good at it, or some people thrive in it, and it's not for every salesperson. Talk to me about the that kind of transition.
I think that there are a few different angles on this. I think firstly, people wanting to go into sort of leadership. I think not really understanding what leadership really is. It's not just necessarily an extension of the job that you're doing. You have a lot of responsibilities, and you have responsibilities to your people. Whereas, a lot of the time when you're, BDM, for example, your responsibility is very much for yourself and like
Yeah.
your own targets and how you grow yourself. But when you are responsible for a team of people, it's not about you. I look at myself, I'm the least important person in that cog. It's not about me,
Mm.
it's about my team and what can I do that actually gets them better and helps them develop. And I think sometimes people will naturally try to progress because they think that that's the next
Yeah.
step.
Do you know
That's
what?
what
I've
they
had
have
this
to do.
conversation time and again on this. It's just about just because you're the best salesperson, sales is inherently selfish, right? Because we're just talking about our KPIs. What can I do to hit my targets? And management is very much we rather than I. So it's not always the best salespeople, right? It's not always the top salesperson makes the best manager. There are traits that a lot of salespeople don't have, and one of those being we rather than me. It's I think that's how
Yeah.
people kind of rise up through it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I think that, then don't get me wrong, I think some of the best managers are the ones that may have had that technical experience. 'Cause I think
Mm.
that to be able to show a level of empathy and understanding of this is why it's difficult and this is what's happening. But you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. And you look at, even some of the biggest businesses like in the world, when they're bringing in a new CEO, that CEO might not necessarily have come from that exact same industry. They might have come
yeah,
somewhere else, but you're hired for a different insight that you have, because you understand how it operates. And I think leadership's very similar.
yeah.
My team know more than me, and I would always hold my hand up. But it's sometimes in leadership, you're not necessarily paid for the job that you do. You're paid for the intervention that you may need to make, and there are two sort of key differences on that
Yeah.
as well.
How is it with different personalities and kind of different egos? It's a sales team at the end of the day. How do you manage that with the different people in your team? What are the important things to think about when you're going into that leadership role?
So everybody has their own driver. What gets them out of bed in the morning, gives them job satisfaction, puts a smile on their face, and that sort of spring in their step. It's different for everybody, and the key with sort of leadership, I think, is making sure people feel that they're an individual, they feel sort of included, but they're also, I suppose, celebrated for the fact that they have differences. I think, but then you also then need to know how to kind of knit them together, the different personalities, in order to form the team.
Mm.
And taking time out with somebody, or with an individual that you just don't talk business about, but you talk about them, their
Yeah.
family, what are they doing, what they enjoy, all of those little bits makes you feel valued. And there's something called the psychological contract,
Hmm.
that's, and that, honing in on the psychological contract, people like wanting to, needing to feel that they belong, and that they're important, all of those little bits, they're all the things I think that probably help teams be successful, but also leaders be successful within, for their teams.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and again, I'm very blessed in my job. I get to speak to loads of sales directors, loads of really successful heads of sales, and people that run teams. And you're right. I think knowing the individuals is really important, isn't it? Like actually getting to know them. It's not just again, it's not that KPI. It's not all KPI driven. It's about
No.
what motivates people. Out of interest, Annie, you've been in it a while. I'm not going to say you're old because you're younger than me. But how are you finding the generational change of kind of what motivates people? Because the drivers now are very different. I've just done a Rising Stars thing where we talked about it, and the next generation are not like us, like we weren't by the generation before. But how are you seeing that kind of shift in, the drivers, the motivators, what they want out of a business or what they want out of a role? Have you noticed so much of a shift?
Oh, like massive, and even like the shift in myself as well.
Mm.
Like over the years, I think culture within a business is exceptionally important at the moment. I think old school sort of sales was, right, you come in, here's your number, smash your number, you get a bonus off the back of it, and that's what people used to be motivated by. But the thing is, money's not a motivator; money's a dissatisfier, and people quickly become
Mm.
dissatisfied. The now, what I think the kind of modern sales force or sales team want, they want to feel that they're invested in, they want to feel that they matter, they want to feel that they can contribute.
Yeah.
They want an element of sort of flexibility. For example, if they need to go and pick the kids up early from school, or when the kids are sick, they don't want to feel that they're doing something sort of something wrong, or feel that
Which,
guilt. They want to be able.
obviously, this is the way everything's changing, but I would never, in a million years, would have approached my boss back in the day about like, can I pick the kids up today? Like, it just, it seemed quite foreign, but now it's nuts that we didn't do it because
Yeah.
actually, the commitment you get back for giving that little bit back is you can't put a price on it.
It's the emotional bank account.
Mm.
And the thing is that it works both ways. But I've been in scenarios where I'm speaking to sort of members of my team, and they're it's coming up to Christmas, and we've got a couple of nativity plays, but I can't do this, I can't do that, and I'm like, what? No, you go and you do that. That's more important. And the thing is recognizing as well, people put in a lot of discretionary hours,
Yeah.
so they will work way past 9 till 5, and actually turning around to them saying, like, you know what, you've put enough in, you make sure you take like enough out as well. And I I think having that, I suppose that kind of human touch to
Yeah.
leadership, always works. And don't get me wrong, the byproduct is that you do get that sort of better, productivity, and that, extra effort, because people
It's
want
the
to
buy-in,
work
isn't it? If we
for.
trained everyone to the desk, they're going to do exactly what you expect of them and no more. If you give them that, if you
Exactly.
give them a little bit, they're always going to go the extra. Well, you'd like to think everyone goes the extra mile. Someone's always going to take the piss. Well,
Yeah, yeah. You always get that, that one. Like, but you know what? Like, genuinely, I think, like, people are sort of grateful, and it kind of makes, it makes you relaxed at work.
mm,
Sometimes there are a lot of people out there still feel that they tread on eggshells at work. That, as soon as something goes wrong, oh no, what's it? Are they going to try and get rid of me,
yeah, you're
etc.
going to
And
kick off.
it, yeah, like, we don't, like, we should not be operating, like that. People. And this is gonna sound so cliche, Marcus, and I hate, if people above that already said this, but like, without people, you have no business. Like,
It's the most important
you
asset by a million miles.
yeah, absolutely. And it's the people, not necessarily what they produce, but
Mm,
it's the actual people themselves. All of these people have lives outside of work, things that are happening, and things that are really, really important. And if they don't feel that they have that support at work,
yeah,
as well, life becomes a hell of a lot harder for them. The way we, make people feel at work, it leaks into their home life. So if people are feeling great at work, the chances are, home life is going to be a little less stressy. But if you
yeah.
flip it on
What
its
it's
head,
like,
if
don't you?
you're
We had a
also,
hard day at work, and then you have to kind of turn it on when you get home. It's tricky, isn't it? You have a great day,
yeah,
you can bounce in, don't you? It's always going to reflect on that home life.
exactly. And you know what, as leaders, that we have that responsibility. There is that
Mm.
responsibility there
It is a
to make
responsibility as well,
sure
and it's
our
like
people are good.
you have to. Yeah, you set the weather for someone. I think that's really important. Again, that's kind of that thing about caring about people. That's why it's not always every salesperson is a great sales manager, because the the fact that you understand that's a lot of power you're holding, that you can affect someone's home life from how they're treated at work is like you said, it's a big responsibility.
It is, and the things, you make the conscious effort though to try and make the environment that they operate in as best as it can. And like, look, there are going to be points throughout, any form of leadership, that you're going to have to deliver or land messages that
Mm.
aren't going to sit right with people.
Yeah, of
But
course.
no matter on the message that you're actually delivering, once people know you, they understand your intent behind the message that you're delivering. And intent is, I think, it's probably key to a lot of things at the moment,
Yeah.
because where people don't feel that they have the relationship with their managers is because they don't understand the intent of that manager. Is that manager got all the best intentions for that individual,
Yeah.
or are they trying to, are they playing smoke and mirrors here?
Mm. That's a
So I think,
communication thing as well,
honestly,
right? It's another trait of leadership. It's how you communicate. If people don't get
yeah,
the reasons why, then they're not going to do it.
exactly. And why is, like Simon Sinek, as he said, that, what, like, why is
Mm.
exceptionally important, so important.
So you talk then about the kind of the team and the environment, which is culture. And we're digging into this a little bit more now, because culture was a bullshit thing that you should stick on the wall, right? It's bean bags or the pizza Thursdays or whatever. And we now know it's very different, and companies live or die by it. How do you embed that culture, especially with field-based teams? It's quite interesting because you're not all around each other all the time. How do you make sure you embed that culture with everyone, and what does it culture look like to you?
So culture, and like, there's a lot of work I've done on sort of ED and I for the last sort of
Mm.
16, 17 years, which has probably really helped me, I think, understand culture a lot deeper. And like you said, yeah, Pizza Fridays, and so it means that we're going to treat you like badly during the week, but we'll
Yeah,
we'll
treat you
we'll
like
get you
shit for a
Pizza
few
Hut on
days.
a
We give you
Friday, so
pizza.
everything's all right now. Yeah, and it doesn't work like that. So like the thing is with culture, it's making people feel safe, I think, is
Mm.
really key to a good culture. Safety of voice, the ability to turn up and be yourself. With remote teams, it does have its challenges, but there are lots of things that you can be conscious of doing. I'd always make sure that like my team, we come together. We come together every week, as a minimum. I will speak to them probably two to three times one on one
Yeah.
during the week. But and it's, do you know what, the thing that drives my call is never about work. I actually use them. They laugh, but I actually use them because I'm on the road a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I'm the same. I'm
I
sat in
get
traffic,
lonely.
someone's getting a phone call.
Yeah, exactly. I get lonely. I need to speak to people, and it's amazing. Like half an hour later, like you're talking about something that you never thought you would be talking about. But that again, that is connectivity that helps them feel connected to
Yeah.
you. And as a leader of a business, you are the business in their eyes. So how they view the business that
Mm.
they work for is through what you project.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah, culture's definitely management down, isn't it? You
yeah.
can't breed something unless you live it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if something's wrong, the first thing I think any good leader does is step back and look and think, what could I have done better? You
Yeah.
don't point the finger at your team and think they didn't do this, they didn't do that, because it starts and ends with me. So
Yeah.
I
Again, not
felt,
always a trait of every salesperson, right? Again, that difference between leadership and sales. Although you should,
yeah,
everyone should be accountable, but realistically, it's very much a leadership trait as opposed to a sales trait.
yeah.
So, just in regards to the culture, I know we touched on the ED&I thing. I'd love to have a chat with you about, because I know you've been an advocate for it, lots of different like mentorship programs and that kind of thing. What are we? And again, the leadership side of things about not having hive thinking. Having that kind of diversity in teams is really important. But what we're doing well, what aren't we doing well? How far have we got to go? And what difference? It's about 12 questions. And what the difference between when you started working in this and now? What have you seen that's been good and has started working?
So I think definitely start with a positive element. I think the industry has really, really, really worked so hard over the years, to make it more inclusive. And you can look at the work that Amy, Imla, have done. Lots of other, we've now got sort of the mental health work that's going on as well. Everybody seems that they're willing to step up to a plate and bring people along,
Yeah,
like with them. And that wasn't about sort of 20 odd years ago, because we had a
yeah,
very different sort of mentality on how we viewed
yeah.
things. And I'll be honest, there are still some old school thinking at the moment that things like ED&I is a load of rubbish, and it's something that isn't, it's a fad that's going to go. But
Yeah.
actually what you've
Do you know
seen
what? Actually,
years.
just sorry to jump in. I'm just reading a book at the moment, and it's about collective blindness, or one of the chapters is collective blindness, and that comes from hiring people who look like you, act like you, same background as you. We have this hive
Yeah.
thinking, and it's called collective blindness. And the whole point of it was that the CIA, the reason they failed so many times, was because they were all middle-aged, white, middle-class guys who looked like their boss. So there was never any sort of out-of-the-box thinking. They all thought the same way. You're basically the yes man for the next one, and it's relevant in any business, right? If we're all the
Yeah.
same, like if I employ 10 of me and everyone says, yeah, that's a great idea, like we're never going to get anywhere. It just destroys creativity.
Yeah, look, 100%, 100%. And I think, in some instances like that still sort of happens, and you're seeing like people and liking certain traits.
Mate, I
about
said that.
like
If we had
it's
two
like,
of them in the office, that would be interesting.
yeah,
I
it's
would know.
Jesus. But you know, I'm but so I always